Hello, Tritons, whether you're a new Triton or a returning one.
Welcome to Fall Quarter.
We are thrilled to be here
to support you wherever you are on your journey.
ISPO is here for you.
Whether you are in this time zone
or somewhere else around the world.
Many of you will be joining us from your home countries.
While some are on campus or down the street.
We are here for you.
We are ready to connect with you.
To make sure that you have the support you need.
This quarter is unlike any before and likely any to come.
Just know that no matter the challenges you face,
we are here to support you.
So as you prepare to start your courses, just remember,
we are a phone call, email, or Zoom meeting away.
ISPO is here for you.
ISPO is here for you.
Welcome to Fall Quarter.
Hello to all our newly admitted Tritons for Fall 2020. Whether you are joining us from inside of the US or from the other side of the world, on behalf of the International Students and Programs Office, also known as ISPO, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Argeria Williams, and I am the Exchange and Sponsored Coordinator here at ISPO. A few housekeeping items before we begin today. First, you're on listen-only mode. You can hear us, but we cannot hear you. Next, we're recording. This webinar will be posted at iWebinars.ucsd.edu. Lastly, please use the Q&A box to get your questions answered. Even if we aren't able to answer them today through chat at the end of our Q&A session, we'll do our best to make sure we have those answers to you by updating our coronavirus FAQs page for newly admitted students. And now let's begin. We are happy to welcome you to today's session. I would like to introduce my colleague, Pauline de Guzman, the Manager of Student Services. Pauline, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thanks, Argeria. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here. As Argeria mentioned, my name is Pauline de Guzman, and I'm the Manager of Student Services here at ISPO. I know that this year has been so crazy, but we are so excited to meet every single one of you and welcome you to the Triton family. Today's session is relevant to students who are studying inside of the US this fall quarter. We'll talk about your support system on campus, review your immigration documents together, and do what's called a document self-check. We'll also discuss F1 and J1 regulations that you need to follow during your program here, and also review resources for travel and emergencies. Throughout our time together, I may ask you some questions, so pay attention. Locate the raise hand icon on your screen to stay engaged. We have quite a bit to cover, so let's go ahead and we'll jump right in here. ISPO is here for you. We know that this quarter will be unlike any other. So as you prepare to start your programs, know that ISPO is your one-stop shop for questions and resources. We have 20 friendly advisors, administrative staff, and student assistants who are ready to help you. ISPO can advise you on immigration documents, also understanding your immigration status, rules for when at times come to working on and off campus, traveling inside of the US and internationally, and on how to navigate academic adjustment to campus life. Another form of advising that ISPO does is programming, or hosting engaging events or programs to help you create the best experience while studying at UC San Diego. Now, ISPO is not the only office on campus who will help you during your program. If you're a graduate student, contact your graduate coordinator of your program in your department. If you're an undergraduate student, familiarize yourself with your college academic advising office. They will help you navigate making progress during your program. You can also rely on your professors in your classes and faculty in your department. Lastly, there are other offices on campus that can help you during your program. Sometimes asking one question, such as, can I study part-time this quarter, requires that you communicate with ISPO, your college or your department, and also the Office of the Registrar. So as you can see, your support system at UC San Diego is made up of various units on campus. As you transition to virtual communication with campus units, take note of communicating via various methods. While ISPO is available through Zoom advising and walk-in, on a walk-in basis, other campus units and other offices may only be available through email or through the Virtual Advising Center or the VAC. So be mindful of different ways to communicate with campus offices and units this quarter as everyone continues to transition to remote services. So now we'll perform a document self-check together. If you have your documents handy, you can go ahead and take them out. We'll go ahead and we'll review them together so you know exactly what to pay attention to when looking at your documents. If you weren't able to register for ISPO's Meet ISPO and Understand Your Immigration Document session, which we did yesterday, make sure you access the recording when available to get a more in-depth look at your immigration documents. So today we'll just briefly go over these so that you know what to look out for. Okay, so to test your knowledge about your immigration documents, let's watch a short video.
I think I can throw away past immigration documents like my I-20 and DS 2019 if I get updated ones.
Okay, so what do you all think? Do you all think that you can throw away your immigration documents if you get updated ones? Aha, for the 16 of you who raised your hands, this is definitely false. Okay, so your immigration documents are extremely important, okay? You'll use them during your program to apply for a work authorization, a driver's license, a bank account, social security card, and other benefits. As we've just learned, okay, keep all copies of your Form I-20 or your DS 2019 from ISPO. And also, if you've attended other institutions in the U.S., make sure that you keep copies of your I-20 or DS 2019 from every institution that you've attended here in the U.S. You never know when you might need them in the future. Another tip is to keep all of your documents valid, okay, and up to date. Today, during our presentation, we'll go over how to make sure that your documents stay valid, how to renew them if they expire. It's also a good idea to take photos of your documents and keep digital copies on your phone so they're accessible. Sometimes it's handy to have them if you need to reference them right away. And lastly, each time you enter the US, remember to do a document self-check. We'll learn how to do that together now. However, it's important to remember to do it each time you enter the US to make sure your documents are valid and in good shape. The first document is your passport. So if you have that with you today, go ahead and take it out, turn to the page with your photo and biographical information. The first thing you want to check for is your biographical information. Make sure everything is correct, your name is spelled correctly, date of birth, and so forth. Also, note the expiration date. Now, it's important to remember that your passport must be valid for at least 6 months into the future. So 6 months before April 2030, set a reminder somewhere on your phone, write it down, and make sure that you apply to renew your passport at least 6 months before this expiration date. If your passport is nearing its expiration date, ensure that you renew it ahead of time. This process can take sometimes weeks. I know that sometimes passport renewals can take 4 to 6 weeks, so renew it as soon as possible. Your passport can be renewed inside or outside of the US at your country's embassy or consulate. So it's a really important point. Make sure that you know your passport can be renewed inside and also outside of the US. You don't need to leave the US to renew your passport. So the next document is your US visa. Now this document, this page should be located inside of your passport. For those of you who have not yet applied for a visa to enter the US, you might not have this yet. But once you are issued your US visa, it will be located inside of your passport. Now, you can think of your visa like a key. You only need a valid visa to enter the US. However, once you're inside of the US, it's okay if you no longer have a key or a valid visa. As long as you are maintaining your status, and we'll talk about what that means later, you can remain in the US. So a lot of students ask, can I stay in the US if my visa is expired? And the answer is yes. Even if you're here with an expired visa, as long as you're maintaining your status, you may remain in the US. When reviewing your visa, ensure your biographical information is correct. Note the number of entries, which lets you know how many times during the validity of your visa you can enter the US. If it says S, then that means you can only enter the US one time or a single time during the validity of the visa. If you see an M, then an M means you can enter the US multiple times during the validity of your visa. So note that number of entries, and also you want to take a look at the expiration date. All right. The expiration date must be valid. Your US visa must be valid only at the time you are entering the US. So again, remember, your visa is like a key. So you only need it to be valid when you're entering the US. Now, if your visa expires, okay, it can only be renewed outside of the US at a US embassy or consulate. There is no way to renew your visa inside of the US. And like I mentioned, you don't need to have it valid and remain in the US. You can maintain your status here in the US even with an expired passport. Okay, so let's test your knowledge. You're inside of the US and notice that your F1 visa is expiring in 2 months, which is in the middle of the fall quarter. Can you remain in the US legally? All right, so I see a lot of hands going up. We should see more hands going up. We should see all hands going up. Okay, you're all so smart. Yes, you're right. So the answer is you can remain in the US legally even if your visa is expired. So for those of you who are studying in the US, you're physically here already this fall quarter, you don't need to leave. You don't need to leave in the middle of the fall quarter if your visa expires. You can stay. Okay, so the next document, which you all should have, is your Form I-20 for F1 students, or if you are a J1 student, your Form DS 2019. So go ahead and take those out, and we'll talk about those two documents now. So F1 students, as well as J1 students, are obligated to keep their Form I-20 and Form DS 2019s up to date. Make sure that your program end date, which is only an expected program end date, is valid. In addition to the program level, the major, the biographical information, and so forth. If any of this information changes, then you should submit a request to ISPO in the iPortal to update your documents and receive an updated one. Okay, now what's really important about your Form I-20 and your Form DS 2019 is in the middle of your document, you'll see a section for Program of Study. You'll locate your program start date and also your expected program end date. Okay, what's important here is that expected program end date. If it currently states that your program end date is June of 2022, but in June of 2022 you realize you need one more quarter, you need more time to complete your program, Before that end date, which is June of 2022, you need to make sure you log into iPortal and submit a request to extend the program end date. Okay, if you do not do that and your program end date passes, it lapses, then unfortunately there may be some issues with your immigration status. So you want to make sure you note that program end date, and if you need extra time to complete your program, extend your program end date on your Form I-20 through the iPortal. And as a reminder, any other changes that occur that impact any changes to your Form I-20 should be submitted within 10 business days. Okay, so the next document is your Form I-94. Now, only once you've physically arrived to the US will you then receive your most updated electronic Form I-94. This is known as your arrival departure record. You will be in charge of generating your own electronic I-94 online about 24 to 48 hours upon arrival by visiting i94.cbp.dhs.gov. Now, when you log on to the CBP website, it will ask you for your biographical information on your passport. So go ahead and you'll enter all that information and then click Get My Most Recent I-94. Once you do that, it will generate a PDF for you. This PDF is known as your electronic I-94. We recommend that you print this document, keep digital copies of it on your phone, make sure it's handy, okay? And again, you won't have this document until you enter the US. When you're looking at your Form I-94, check to ensure that the class of admission is correct. So if you're on an F1 visa, make sure it says F1. If you're here on a J1 visa, make sure it says J1. Another important thing to note is the admit until date. Okay, so after the admit until date, it should always state D/S, which means duration of status. If there is a date, if there is an actual date after admit until date, let's say it says December 30th, 2020, what that means is you need to depart the US by December 30th of 2020. And that's right around winter break, so we want to make sure that you don't need to leave the US by that date. And so contact ISPO if any of your information on your Form I-94 happens to be incorrect, okay? So that we can direct you to the right resources to correct this document. And I want to remind you all, if you have any questions, please submit them through the Q&A feature on your Zoom panel. Please do not use the Zoom chat. Let's condense all of our questions through the Q&A feature. Okay, so we've talked about your passport, your visa, your Form I-20, DS 2019, and also your electronic Form I-94. Another piece that is important during your document self-check is not an actual document itself. However, it is a reporting requirement that is required of you as F1 and J1 students. In addition to your immigration documents being up to date, you also need to ensure that you report your most updated address or your current address to ISPO. To do this, you'll visit tritonlink.ucsd.edu and click on the update address or address fields. Oops. You can update your current address, known as your local US address. Also, if you, for any reason, depart the US during the fall quarter and want to update your address, you can also update your current address to a foreign address outside of the US, if that's where you are. Also, make sure that you update your permanent address, which should be your foreign address outside of the US, wherever you plan to return to after your program here. And then an emergency contact. It's really important, for emergencies. If something happens, we want to get a hold of you, or someone who we want to update about your status. Go ahead and and make sure that you have an emergency contact on file on Triton Link to make sure that we can get a hold of someone on your behalf for emergencies. Okay. And again, when updating your address, make sure that the current address is either your local US address or if you've departed, your foreign address. There's instructions on Triton Link on how to input your foreign address if needed. Okay, and I see a lot of students submitting great questions through the Q&A, so thank you. Continue to please submit questions if you have anything that we discuss here during today's presentation that you need clarification on. All right, so this is very important and is only required for this fall quarter, okay? Upon arrival to the US, we need our students to log in to the iPortal and submit what's called the Fall 2020 check-in form or check-in request. This is required so that ISPO can activate your CVIS record. We'll talk about what that means, but it's really important that if you're already here in the US, or you've recently arrived to the US, or upon arrival to the US, you submit the Fall 2020 check-in form in the iPortal. Okay, you'll be required to upload your Form I-94 and then also update your current address as a US address in Triton Link. So upon arrival, or if you're already here, remember to please submit the Fall 2020 check-in form. Now, if your plans change, we know that everything is a bit unpredictable. If your plans do change, it's okay. But if you are unable to arrive to the US by October 16th, then you'll need to log into iPortal and submit the new admit I-20 or DS-2019 amendment request. So ISPO can then adjust your CVIS record with a 2021 program start date to reflect when you'll actually be entering the US. So it's really, really important that you remember, if you arrive to the US or you're already here, Fall 2020 check-in form. If for any reason your plans change, you're not able to arrive by October 16th, then please submit the new admit I-20 or DS-2019 amendment reprint request. Both of these are in iPortal. Okay. Okay, so now that you're all experts at doing a document self-check, and every time you enter the US, you're gonna do that on your own, let's go over some F1 and J1 regulations so you know what rules to follow while you're here in the US. So throughout my presentation today, we've used the term maintaining status quite a bit. But I know a lot of you are asking, what does that mean? What does maintaining my status mean? What does it mean to hold an active CVIS record or a valid F1 or J1 status? What does it mean when I say fall out of status? So we use these terms quite a bit here at ISPO, and so I want to talk about them a bit so that you know exactly what we're referring to, exactly what we mean when we reference them. Now, when ISPO first issues you a Form I-20 or DS-2019, okay, you will hold what's called initial status. This means that you're ready to start your program on the program start date listed on your Form I-20 or your DS-2019. Okay, now, at the beginning of the fall quarter, and only once you've physically arrived here to the US, ISPO will then activate your CVIS record, okay? So this is what we're referring to when it means we are going to activate your CVIS record. We will not know unless you fill out the Fall 2020 check-in form that you're physically here in the US and that you've began classes on campus. And so it's important that you fill out this form so ISPO can then activate your Form I-20. Now, once your Form I-20 is activated, then you will maintain your status or maintain that active status by following certain rules, regulations, and reporting requirements, like updating your documents until your program ends. So for the duration of your program, your stay here in the US, you need to maintain your status or follow these rules. And so we'll talk about these rules today. Now, what happens if you don't follow these rules? Okay, if you don't follow these rules, then you might fall out of status, which is not a good thing. And you will also begin to accrue unlawful presence in the US, which is not good. You always want to make sure that you're maintaining status in the US. Now, no worries if this happens to you. ISPO is here to support you and help you to get back into status. Okay, so you'll notice that instead of your program end date, here we're listing your last date of enrollment or classes, because the program end date, as you all remember, on your Form I-20 or DS 2019 is only an expected program end date. Okay, it's only expected. You might need more time or you might actually need less time. So from the true program end date, which can be the last day of your final quarter here at UC San Diego, or if you're a graduate student, it might be your comprehensive exam or your defense date, okay? The day after, you will then enter into what's called your grace period. So the grace period allows you to plan for your next steps after you complete your program of study. You can apply for work authorization, maybe start classes at a new school, pack up your things, prepare to go back home and depart the US, or even change your visa status. F1 students have a 60-day grace period, while J1 students have a 30-day grace period. Now, during your grace period, you continue to maintain your active status, okay? Let's say that you apply for work authorization after graduation. You can continue to maintain active status if you apply for work after graduation. Now, if you transfer to a new school to start graduate studies, let's say at Cornell, as long as your new program starts within 5 months of when you last enrolled here at UCSD, then you'll return to what's called initial status, and then you'll start this whole process all over again, maintaining status and so forth. However, if you decide at the end of your grace period that you wish to depart the US, or if you don't take any action at the end of your grace period, your CVIS record will auto-complete. Okay, it's out of our control. It automatically completes on that 60th or that 30th day, and then you'll be out of status. So it's really important that after your last date of enrollment or comprehensive exam or defense date, even if it's not updated on your Form I-20, that you have entered your grace period. If you have questions about this process, you can always talk to an ISPO advisor and we can help you to understand this timeline. Okay, so maintaining status means that you are following certain rules, regulations, and reporting requirements. Let's look at these rules now. The first one is enrolling first time. Also, you need to update your I-20 or DS 2019, maintain academic standing and integrity, basically doing really well in your classes and making sure that you're excelling with integrity and honesty. You also have to follow some federal rules and regulations here in the US, and then know what kind of rules there are around work authorization. So let's go ahead and let's look at these rules now. To test your knowledge about our first rule, which is full-time enrollment, we'll watch a quick video.
International students must enroll in 12 units each academic quarter. There are some reasons for taking less than 12 units, but getting a bad grade isn't one of them.
Okay, what do you all think? I want to see some hands. Do you think that you can take less than 12 units and drop a class if you're getting a bad grade? Okay, you're all so smart. So it's true, you should not drop a class if you get a bad grade. That's not one of the reasons that you would then be eligible to take less than 12 units. So let's look at full-time enrollment. As an F1 or a J1 student, you should plan to enroll and remain enrolled in a minimum of 12 units each academic quarter here at UC San Diego. Now, summer and our winter and spring breaks, these are not required because they're considered vacation. International students are required to enroll full-time. However, remember that there are some exceptions to taking less than 12 units. But before dropping and taking less than 12 units, you want to make sure that you log into the iPortal and apply for what's called a reduced course load, okay? Now, you may be approved to take less than 12 units for certain reasons, and these are the three. The first is an academic reason. You need to maintain at least 6 units, but you are allotted at least only one time during your entire academic program to take less than 12 units. For an academic reason. Academic reasons include initial difficulty with reading or English language requirements, adjustment to American teaching principles, or maybe you registered for a higher level course and you did not take the prerequisite to enroll in that class, and so you need to drop it because you won't be able to succeed. You didn't have the prerequisite. Those are some academic reasons. So again, you can only do that once in your academic in your entire program. The second reason is a medical reason. So let's say, you break your leg playing soccer with a bunch of dorm mates. Okay, obviously can't walk to class. It's really hard to concentrate. You're in pain. You need time to recover. Those are medical reasons. You'll need to get a medical letter or a support letter from a doctor, upload that into iPortal so that we can approve that request. And then the last reason is if it's your very final quarter. You need to have at least 1 unit of enrollment in your very final quarter here at UC San Diego, but if you're graduating, you only have 1 class left to take, no problem, you can take less than 12 units. And again, make sure that you apply for a reduced course load in iPortal before you drop to less than 12 units. Okay, so our second rule is making sure that your Form I-20 or DS 2019 stay up to date. So let's test your knowledge about your Form I-20 or your DS 2019.
I should always note the program end date listed on my Form I-20 or Form DS 2019. If I don't complete my program by this date, I need to apply for an extension before this date, or I can face problems with my immigration status.
Okay, what do you all think? Should you apply for an extension of your program end date before the program end date listed? I should see more hands, way more hands. Right, this is true. You're all so smart. So you need to make sure that you extend that program end date, okay, before the program end date listed on your Form I-20. Again, I can't tell you how many students face issues with their immigration status because they forgot to extend that program end date. Make sure that you remember. Other updates to your Form I-20, for example, if you complete your undergraduate program here at UCSD and you're accepted into a graduate program, we need to update the new program level from undergraduate to graduate. If you change your major, if you apply for work authorization, change status, any updates to your program may require some changes on your Form I-20. So check in with ISPO about any of these changes and make sure that you report them as soon as you know, so that we can provide you an updated I-20. Okay, now our third rule is academic standing and integrity. I love these videos, so let's test your knowledge about academic integrity.
My friend and I study together, it's okay to submit the exact same assignment and paper to our professor, since we'll probably come up with the same answer.
Okay, so what do you all think? If you and your friend study together? Can you all submit the same exact paper to your professor? Okay, so for the 60 of you who think that's true, that is definitely false. Now, academic integrity is a serious thing here on campus, okay? Academic integrity violations have a serious impact on your immigration status. Those who are subject to these types of violations must transfer out of UC San Diego within 15 days, which is not a lot of time. This doesn't give students much time then and can be stressful. So learn about excelling with integrity, which is basically not cheating and doing your own work, by visiting the Academic Integrity Office at aio.ucsd.edu. Now, there's going to be a lot of group work and projects that you'll need to collaborate with your classmates on, but it's important to review your course syllabi, talk to your professors, and understand exactly what is expected of you when collaborating with your classmates and conducting research. Those who are subject to suspensions due to these violations can face 1 quarter or up to a full academic year suspension. This may then cause delays in enrollment at UC San Diego and ultimately the inability to continue your program. So it's really important that you pay attention to what it means to excel with integrity, and always keep in touch with your department and your faculty in your courses. Our fourth rule is a fun one. This one is about following federal rules and regulations. So let's test your knowledge on this.
The legal age to drink and buy alcohol in my home country is 18, so I think that might be true in the US also.
Okay, what do you all think? Four of you think that the legal age to drink alcohol is 18. Okay, that is definitely false. So just for clarification, for all 40 of you, the legal age to drink and purchase alcohol in the United States is 21. So I know that the rules here in the US may be different from what you're used to back home, and I'm so sorry. However, you do need to remember what is expected of you through federal as well as state laws here in the US. Now, there are state laws and there are also federal laws. Federal laws apply to all 50 states, okay? While state laws only apply to that particular state. So state laws only apply here in California. Let's take medicinal marijuana for an example. Although it is legal in the state of California to purchase and partake in recreational use of marijuana, it is not legal in all 50 states. So the use of marijuana is actually a state law. It is not a federal law. It's important to know that international students are actually subject to federal laws, okay? Even though you're in California and it's legal here, students who possess marijuana and you encounter law enforcement, you may face trouble because it is a federal law that you cannot possess marijuana. So just be careful, take caution, know what rules might be different from what you're used to back home, and also what is expected of you as a federal law. Okay, our last rule to follow is about working in the US and obtaining work authorization. So let's test your knowledge here.
Now that I have a social security card, I can work anywhere, anytime.
Okay, what do you all think? If you have a social security card, you can work anywhere, anytime. False. Okay, so for the 50 of you who think that is true, let's go over work authorization. I know that so many of you are looking forward to getting some experience off campus, right, outside of the classroom. However, work authorization is a tricky thing to learn about. So you all really need to make sure that you understand what kind of work authorization you need before you start working. I hope you've all registered for our Working as an International Student session. I know that they're offered a couple times, a few tomorrow as well as next week, where we will go in depth over work authorization for on-campus, off-campus, after your program of study, how to apply for an SSN, and all that good stuff. So make sure that you register for that session. Now, even if you have an SSN, okay, you can only use it when it's paired with proper work authorization. So using your SSN alone without prior authorization is considered unauthorized employment. To avoid serious problems with unauthorized employment, again, before you start working, you need to find out what kind of work authorization you need. Now, you can visit iwork.ucsd.edu to explore different types of employment available to you during and after your program of study. And again, please register for our Working as an International Student session where we go over work authorization in depth. As many of you are preparing to travel or will travel eventually, visit itravel.ucsd.edu to learn about what documents you may need when seeking re-entry into the US. Also, for those of you who are planning to explore California's amazing locations in the next few weeks, learn about what documents you should carry when traveling inside of the US. Ensure you have a valid travel signature on the second page of your Form I-20 or the first page of your Form DS 2019. On the Contact Us page of ISPO's iOrientation website, you'll find a download link for ISPO's International Student Emergency Card. Now, this card is super important. Download it, keep it as a digital copy on your phone, whatever you need, because it contains important numbers as well as tips on what you need to do if you're ever detained by a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer, or if you're ever arrested by the police. So make sure that you access this document. All right, so I hope you have all learned so much today. I've enjoyed my time with you, but we are nearing the end. All of today's information is available on ISPO's website, which is iStudents.ucsd.edu. ISPO also provides updates to immigration regulations and what's happening to you on our Instagram and Facebook account. We also suggest that you download UC San Diego's mobile app, which has really helpful tools to navigate campus. And lastly, we will do our absolute best to remind you of all of these rules and regulations that you need to follow through social media, through UC San Diego's mobile app when possible, and also through ISPO's iStudents newsletter. This is sent to your UC San Diego email every week or so. So we will try our best to remind you of all of these rules and regulations, but remember that it is up to you to stay up to date and know what rules to follow. Okay, so now I would like to turn it back over to Argeria.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Pauline. That was such great information. We have a few minutes so we can answer just a couple of questions. The one that I am seeing most often is, where is this check-in form? Now the check-in form will be in the iPortal. So you will log into iportal.ucsd.edu, and that is going to be where you will find the Fall 2020 check-in form. That will be where you will upload your I-94. So I just wanted to remind you all that that form will be found in the iportal.ucsd.edu.
Perfect. Also, Argeria, I wanted to also add, this form actually is not available yet. Yes. It will be available, as Argeria explained, starting Friday morning. So that today's the 9th, so on the 11th. So Friday the 11th, around 9 a.m., that should be available. But please listen to Argeria's instructions, log into the iPortal, and submit that form.
Perfect. Thank you, Pauline. So you all will have a head start on knowing about this form and getting it submitted on Friday. Now let's see here. Let me see. I did see another question about full-time enrollment. So does full-time enrollment equal 12 units? The answer to that question is yes. Full-time enrollment is going to be a minimum of 12 units for the fall quarter. And let's see, we have time for just maybe one more question. So let me see one that was asked a couple of times. Okay, so it looks like there was a couple of questions about where you locate your I-94. So if you go onto our website, which is going to be iStudents.ucsd.edu, we have a great information page about accessing your I-94. It's going to have really great instructions for you about how to locate it, the things that you'll need to input, and troubleshooting. So if you have any issues locating that, you can go ahead and just go onto our website and find that page available to you. So just a reminder about that, don't feel like you have to copy any links. All right, so thank you again. That is all the time that we have together today. I wanted to just thank you all for attending today's orientation session. As a reminder, please feel free to visit our website, iStudents.ucsd.edu, where you can find all the information that Pauline went over today. Now, before we say goodbye, just a couple of reminders. Please continue to register for other orientation sessions by visiting iorientation.ucsd.edu. At the end of this session, you will get an email with a survey. Please fill out that survey and let us know how we can better serve you. Stay up to date by visiting iupdates.ucsd.edu and by checking your UC San Diego email for weekly ISPO newsletters. Lastly, you can always contact ISPO at contact.ucsd.edu and follow us on social media. Thank you all for attending today's session. Again, whether you are joining us from inside or outside of the US or from the other side of the world, on behalf of the International Students and Programs Office here at UC San Diego, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, evening, or morning. We look forward to welcoming you all to fall quarter. Thank you.